The fracture changed the entire world. Lives were lost, Lumiere was split in two, and the mysterious monolith was created. Here, a husband and wife stood at odds, a desperate husband trapped beneath, and a grieving wife above. This family stuck in the cycle of grief would change life for everyone, but especially for themselves. Their standstill would last for 67 years, and during that time they both painted different versions of their family. Aline with her painted copies and Renoir with his Axons. For Renoir, he painted the Axons and their respective islands as a way to remember his family during his imprisonment, but also as a way to understand them. The Hauler is Clea, the Reacher is Alicia, the Maskkeeper is Verso, and Sirène is Aline. They are representations of who they are, how he sees them, and how he sees his own dynamic with them. But they also seem to be lessons or mirrors to depict the things about them that they don't see. Hidden within every aspect of their design, their environments, and their music are stories of the truth. Here is Sirène and her hidden meanings. Sirène's island is beautiful. It's serene, it's magical, and it's all built to showcase the beauty of Sirène. But at the same time, it's wall after wall, and Sirène is at the bottom, enclosed by the many walls that surround her, tethered in place by her beautiful dress. A dress made of the same fabric that matches the one we find hanging on the wall inside the manor. Even inside this canvas, even after their fighting and the fracture, even after being imprisoned by his own wife, Renoir still remembers her favorite fabrics enough to recreate them in this version of her. They're beautiful, but here she stands, a dancer with no legs and no freedom, weighed down by her fabrics and trapped in place by the walls and destruction that surrounds her. Verso says that past expeditions have been tearing down all the walls, which has left the building broken and falling apart. But I think it also symbolizes something greater. Aline is someone who is enclosed by walls, endless walls that you have to break to get to the person within. And from everything we know about Renoir and Aline's relationship, she was beginning to build more walls. She was beginning to pull away from him, and he didn't realize it or see it, or maybe he just didn't want to admit it, but the walls were growing, and that's what I see here with her island. It's beautiful and massive, and it's all the walls that Renoir feels between him and the woman that he loves, and who she used to be. The Axon is Renoir's story of his wife through his eyes, his wife that was pulling away. This island and Sirène herself may be beautiful and grand, but there's a sadder story about Renoir and Aline's failing marriage hidden underneath. The creation of Sirène is Renoir trying to understand the things he couldn't see outside the canvas. He says the process helps him make sense of the chaos. The process moves him, allowing him to shape and mold a composition, to understand and create order, to tame the chaos and create something unique to him. He sees his paintings as proof that he has not surrendered to the despair, unlike his wife. He also says that him and Aline used to be the same, but somehow, somewhere, she changed. Sirène is Renoir trying to understand that change, and how him and Aline became so different. Aline is a very skilled painter, so skilled that she even became the head of the Painters' Council. But it wasn't just painting that was her passion. She loved creating any type of art. We don't know a lot about Aline and her life outside the canvas, but we know she lived for the process of creation more so than the product. Renoir says they both shared this aspect of capturing the essence of an idea. Aline loved to create. She was also a dancer and loved music. And Maëlle says that Sirène's dance is familiar, because it's probably one that she saw her mother dance growing up. Aline has always been full of wonder and creativity, but Renoir says that somewhere, somehow, she changed. She no longer cares for the act of painting, only what her painting can achieve. I think Sirène is Renoir painting his wife as both how she used to be, but also how she became. It's both how she changed without him realizing, and it's also how the grief changed her. Alongside this, I think Renoir is also painting why he fell in love with her in the first place. Her dancing, her connection with music, her painting and passion for art all seduced Renoir under her spell. These are the things that he fell in love with. Sirène's song can be translated a few ways, but based on what I could find, it's essentially a love poem, but a sad one. Sirène chained, noble grieving queen, she reigns deaf world in her satin ebony dress. She rumbles, she destroys, devastated, and cries foul cruelty of the soul. In strength and pain she devours, nightmare and terror, an unleashed thunder, grieving world. This is mostly Google Translate, so it could be somewhat wrong, but I think the lyrics sound exactly what I'd expect from a song that sounds both beautiful and sad. She's crying, but she's destroying. She's a queen, but she's chained. She's two things at once, beautiful and dangerous, both to herself and others. We know that people have died just looking at Sirène. Expeditions have succumbed to her melody and died because of it. Her power is overwhelming and all-consuming. This is how Renoir sees Aline. A beautiful, hypnotic woman, so full of wonder, beauty, and creativity, but she's also trapped, dangerous, destructive, and manipulative. Some may see this depiction of his wife as cruel, but I think it's just real. Renoir uses his painting to understand, and that's what he's doing with Sirène. He's understanding the woman that he loves, that is so lost in her grief that she's hurting everyone, including herself, but also including him. This is a love poem to the person that Aline became and how he recognizes her grief and anger and sees the things he couldn't see before. Robe de Jour is, I think, about the woman Renoir fell in love with. It's about her calmness, her perfect movement, ballet enchanted by grace and beauty, in her dress of love. This is a happier song to who Aline used to be, how skilled she was and how much her essence pulled Renoir in. This is a love song to who she used to be and who he still sees under everything she has become. There's two other songs that play on this island. Tisseur's theme, which is fully instrumental, and then there is also Rouge de Iris, Iris's Red. This one plays during the fight with Tisseur, and while the interpretation is a bit confusing and vague, and I think this could be interpreted two different ways. Renoir calling out to Aline and speaking of the limitless lengths he will go to for her. For her, Sirène will break reality. It's rather sad when you put the song together with this being Renoir's depiction of himself. Tisseur is fighting to protect Sirène and will do anything for her, even die because of it. On the other hand, this could also be about Sirène and Aline, shattering what is real. The petals, the gentleness of her soul, is now enchanted by Iris's red. Either way you look at it, it paints Sirène being lost. The gentleness that Renoir knew is gone. All of the songs on this island add to the story of Renoir falling in love with this beautiful woman, but then his wife becomes someone else while he didn't realize it. She slowly pulls away from him, and then the loss of their son breaks her, turning her from a gentle, calm, sweet woman into this angry, destructive stranger who he still loves. He's trying to find the woman that he knew underneath all of this, and he's willing to die to do it. That is the power of Sirène and the power of Aline over Renoir. The music makes you feel all of those emotions, but there's something more important to the songs than their lyrics and their meanings, their intent. All of Sirène's songs are manipulating, they're serenading. They're part of Sirène's siren song. Monoko says that what she really does is play with your head. Everything about her is alluring and tantalizing and hard to resist. Her song is powerful. Coupled with her dance and appearance, it's hard not to give in. But the reality of what she's doing is manipulation. I think this shows how Renoir felt so hypnotized by Aline that he would do literally anything for her, and how he felt manipulated by this. Maybe he's feeling this way towards his own feelings and how his love overwhelmed him. Or maybe he felt like Aline was actually manipulating him. But regardless of where the manipulation stems from, the message is clear. Falling under Aline, Sirène's spell is dangerous. This is the part of Sirène that is the lesson. To not give in to the wonder, to not fall under her spell. This is also reflected in the nevrons that Renoir painted on the island. The glissandos, which are named after a music technique, also resemble snakes. The glissandos have rattlesnake tails, which is usually used to scare prey away. But for these glissandos, they also have the ability to enchant, just like Sirène. The ballet dancers that also dance to Sirène's song also have the ability to enchant, again just like Sirène. Everything here is enchanting, just like Aline. Her dance, the environment, the music, it starts to make everyone lose themselves. Ciel starts dancing, Lune leans into the feeling, Maëlle is confused and Verso tries to fight it. But even Minoko gives in eventually. She is manipulating their emotions by making everyone feel hers. Something past expeditioners have also felt. Expedition 76 died to Sirène's melody. One of them said what they were experiencing was empathic distress. They were feeling Sirène's emotional state through her song, and they were feeling distress because of it. On the surface, she doesn't seem sad or lost in her grief. Instead, Sirène looks peaceful, dancing to her melody. You'd only know she was in distress by feeling what she feels. She is successful in hiding her true feelings, which is probably why Renoir didn't see the signs, didn't realize the changes within Aline. You'd only know what Sirène feels if she either told you or made you feel exactly what she feels, which is what she does. Aline seems to always make those around her feel her emotions, to the extent that she entered Verso's canvas, painted her dead son, painted an entire city full of painted people to fill her void. Avoiding her grief means that those within the canvas were the actual ones shouldering the weight of Aline's loss. She is consistently making those around her suffer the consequences of her emotions. This is her destructive nature. And we know from Clair's comments, implying her mother and father have done stuff like this before, that this is a recurring thing with Aline. Whatever she is feeling becomes the most important thing, and she makes everyone around her feel it too. I know the things I just said are conflicting. How can she both hide her true feelings while also forcing them on everyone? But I think the answer is simple. I compared Aline to Clair in my last video because I do think they are very similar. Two women surrounded by their own walls, composed, strict, perfectionist, and both of them in control of themselves, but this is where they differ. Aline loses control, while Clair remains in control. Clair is the more successful painter, and I think this could be why. She finds a way to direct her emotions into purpose. Meanwhile, Aline seems to let her emotions consume her. Her journey into the canvas was gradual. There's a bed on the floor near the canvas. I think Aline slept here in between entering the canvas before her grief completely consumed her, and before she refused to leave. Maybe it wasn't originally her plan to stay forever. And maybe Renoir didn't see how much her time within the canvas wasn't actually helping her. But it's this point where her emotions took over completely. And this is also when her grief spilled over and became everyone else's problem. To Aline, only her grief matters. Not her family on the outside, not her family inside, only Verso. The subject of her grief and key to the emptiness in her heart. Nothing else mattered. I think this characteristic of Aline is also represented in the music. Her own music becomes so strong and powerful that she refuses to hear anyone else's. Expedition 55 speaks of how the music within the Colosseum worked. The Nevrons were unaffected by sonics, from the expedition augmenting Pictos with music. They said, "It's as if they can't hear our music. They just keep dancing to their own." Maybe this represents how Aline refused to hear anyone else's voice, other than her own, which I think is pretty apparent by her story, and how she is absolutely unwavering, knowing full well it will cost her her life. Instead of leaving the canvas and addressing her grief in a healthy manner, she discards the entire family and makes them and the people of Lumiere suffer the consequences of her actions and her emotions. She makes painted Alicia wear the scars of her blame. She makes painted Renoir fight to protect her. She makes painted Verso have to live this life in between, forcing him to make horrible decisions. She makes the people of Lumiere suffer for her and Renoir's fighting. Everything is collateral damage. This all could have been prevented, but instead everything must be how Aline wants, and everyone must feel what she feels. This is part of what Renoir painted with Sirène. These same actions are mirrored with the expedition. She's manipulating Expedition 33 to yearn for those they've lost, just like her. She lures them in with that sense of wonder and awe, and then she makes them see the ones that they've lost. When first entering the Colosseum, you feel her wonder. The song, the dance, the beauty, it makes them feel what Renoir felt falling in love with her, but by the time you get past her walls and make it to Sirène herself, her wonder quickly turns to making everyone feel exactly as she does. She makes them feel the sadness and longing that she has for her dead son. I also think in a way, she's showing them what they could have if they surrendered like she did. This is why Verso is the hardest to trick. He is familiar with her games, and has also come to his own conclusions. While he used to entertain Aline's illusions of his painted family, he has separated himself, and that's why he doesn't see anyone when everyone else is being charmed. He doesn't long for anyone anymore, not like Sirène does, and not like everyone else does. Instead, he is mad at her deception and her games. He's had enough being a pawn. This interaction between Verso and Sirène is really indicative of the dynamic between her and Verso. Aline was playing a game with him, manipulating him and using him for herself. Here, Verso can finally stand against her and not give in. But it's not the same with everybody else. The final battle with Sirène is really the culmination of everything we know about Aline. As the fight goes on, Sirène becomes more erratic and more violent. Her movements become more rough and angry, and you can see the shift in her entire demeanor. Aline is someone who seems like she experiences strong emotions and keeps them inside until they boil over. I think her fight kind of reflects that. It actually reminds me of the final fight with Renoir, when Aline re-enters the canvas. She is colder and harsher than ever. She immediately destroys Sirène because she is angrier than ever. Nothing can change her mind. She does not see anyone else's side or hear anyone else's voice. Life forces cruel choices by making Renoir make these choices for his family when they can't. This is most evident with Aline. Even after being defeated, Sirène still doesn't give up, just like Aline. Instead, her song becomes maddening and overpowering. It makes everyone's heads hurt. And I think in her last moment, she tries one final manipulation to appeal to the person she sees the most of herself in, Lune. Lune is a musician. We can even see her playing guitar at the beginning of the game. Lune, like Aline, knows how to create music that enchants others. She shares that same sense of wonder that Aline does, the process of creation and discovery. She loves puzzles and questions. She's always trying to figure people out and unravel their mysteries. Lune lives to learn. She's also focused, determined, and in control, and she doesn't give up. She is very similar to Aline, which is why Lune is the one to deliver the final blow. It's also why she can wear the hair and clothing of Sirène. The gift is for her because she did what Sirène could not. Unlike Aline, who gave in to the wonder and madness of grief, it's Lune who recognizes they are the same, but she makes another choice. She doesn't give in. This is the lesson of Sirène, and the lesson that Renoir imparted. How important it is not to lose yourself, whether it's in someone you love or losing yourself within grief. Lune doesn't lose herself. If only Aline could have followed in Lune's footsteps. Sirène is a perfect portrait of beauty and grace, and is designed to be mesmerizing, so that we understand how alluring Aline supposedly is, but under it all, I think there's something very sad about her design. Based on the names of the ballet nevrons that Renoir painted, and the music referring to ballet, Sirène and Aline are ballet dancers, but Sirène can't be. The basis of ballet is its footwork, and while it uses the entire body, the ballet feet are iconic to the dance. Yet Sirène has no feet. She can't do any ballet poses, she can't do any real ballet dances. She's beautiful and hypnotizing, but a ballet dancer who can't do actual ballet is rather sad. Instead, she is weighed down by her dress and stuck in place. Everything ballet is not. She's no longer the ballet dancer she once was. Maybe it's simply a design choice and less for the devs to animate, but this is how I interpret Sirène's design. She's only half the dancer that she used to be. She still has the design of a dancer with the glamour, the jewels, and the gold, but she also has these 6 chokers on her neck that don't match the gold ornaments of the rest of her design. She is choking, she is suffocating, and I think that's maybe how Renoir saw her. I think before the death of Verso, his wife was dealing with something that made her pull away from him, something that made her walk away in one of the flashbacks of her and Renoir. Something was happening to Aline and he wasn't aware of it, but I think he's depicted it in this version of her, recognizing her own suffering and how she continues to dance and create and shine despite it. Sirène is also stuck. The fabric of her dress fills the bottom of the Colosseum and makes her immobile. I think it's sad that she's stuck. It's almost like she's stuck putting on a show and performing. Maybe this represents her constant drive to create no matter what. Maybe it shows another feeling of her feeling trapped that Renoir didn't want to recognize. Maybe it's even Renoir making her stuck with the endless fabric that he sews. Because behind the scenes of Sirène's dance and song is a representation of Renoir. He paints himself on every island of the Axons. Whether there was a version of him with Clair's Axon before she was killed is unknown, but Alicia has her little green-haired builder, the Mask Keeper has Visages, and Sirène has Tisseur. Tisseur means weaver, and that's exactly what he's doing, creating the fabrics for Sirène's dress. He's essentially sewing the fabrics that are keeping her in place. He's both adorning her with his work and maybe weighing her down, and is the reason why she is stuck. I think it's also important to note that while she sings and dances and performs in all of her glory, the weaver cannot see his work or support of Sirène come to life. He can't see her dance or see her wear his fabrics. He only operates behind the shadows, forgotten. The Tisseur, I think, is the saddest part of Sirène's island. This is Renoir. This is how Renoir sees himself to Aline. He is stuck here forever sewing her fabrics for her dresses, so that she can dance and look beautiful and serene. His dedication is even in the actual design. The face is cracked and it reminds me of the curator, but opposite in color. His light is showing through, but it's broken and damaged. The front of the creature also has a small heart on its chest plate, and its entire body is made for its purpose. The base is a pure white depiction of Sirène. She is the base, the foundation upon which Tisseur is built. But most interestingly are all the pins in its body. Pin cushions are made to hold your pins, but that's exactly what his body is made for. He holds the pins for Aline so that she doesn't have to. He holds them for her. I think this is his way of showing the ways that he is hurt, the ways that Aline hurts him, and how the things he does for her hurt him. This is what the pins represent: pain. And they're everywhere. The entire area where he works is broken and falling apart, and the pins are endless. If the pins represent pain, then these are pains of the past or possibly the future, pains that always linger, that will always be there. In this falling apart, isolated, lonely place, Tisseur only works for her, takes her pain and exists for Sirène, just like how Renoir exists for Aline. Everything he does is for her. He is doing the hard labor while she simply dances. I think this is such a sad reflection of how Renoir views their relationship and dynamic. In contrast to his depiction of Aline as Sirène, this weaver, this creature, is really nothing. Just a hurt worker behind the scenes, forgotten. I think this reflects how Renoir keeps their family together. He keeps Aline together, and like Clair, who shoulders the weight of the responsibilities of the family, I think Renoir shoulders the pain. Throughout the entire story, we see that he has been given no room to grieve. He is constantly chasing one family member after another. First Aline and then Maëlle. When we speak with the fading woman, Clair tells us that Renoir is terrified of losing another family member, which is why he does what he does. Renoir will destroy himself. He will fill himself with pins, make himself the villain, if it means his family will be okay. I think that's what the Tisseur represents. The pain he endures, the loneliness that he feels doing it, and how much he does for those he loves, especially Aline. He doesn't want to fight, just how like the Tisseur isn't hostile. He doesn't want to stand against his wife or do any of this. He doesn't want to be the villain, but he will if he has to, because life and his wife keep putting Renoir in a position to have to be the one to make these choices for his family, which is really the crux of Renoir. Life keeps forcing cruel choices because that's all that Renoir knows. Even in his depiction of himself as the Weaver, he remains unwavering. Not only does he work tirelessly for her, he also shields Sirène in the final battle if you don't kill him. But if you do kill the Tisseur, he drops an anti-charm picto. Quite ironic that the man absolutely charmed and enthralled by his siren of a wife would drop an item to combat those very things. It's a small thing, but I think it's very intentional. The easiest way to defeat her is to not be charmed by Sirène. I'm sure he wishes he had this power himself. Alongside this anti-charm picto, there's another element that shows Renoir's true feelings. He curses you during the fight, the same way the fading man tells you he is cursed from turning a blind eye. The entire fight is reflective of Renoir's feelings. He is cursed, he is charmed, he is suffering for Sirène. And when you fight him, he dies for her. The sadness of Tisseur is obvious, and after you defeat him, even Lune says their victory feels hollow. You're just hurting and killing someone who is already suffering, and someone who didn't want to fight you in the first place. This is Renoir and Aline. Renoir doesn't want to fight, just like Tisseur. But just like we forced him to fight, Aline has forced him as well. From everything that we've seen, Aline hasn't treated Renoir with love or kindness pretty much the entire story until the end. She's resentful that he wants her to leave, showcased in the song where the two are singing at each other. She's hurting him, discarding him, and demanding him to leave, all while he begs and pleads for their love. It's devastatingly sad. In Act 2, the song that plays in the world map has lines about Renoir being broken and crying, and forever having lost his son. Renoir is suffering and is fearing losing Aline to the canvas, And then his daughter Alicia too. His family is vanishing in front of him, and he's painting self-portraits of his grief and loneliness. The song Une vie à Tamier is heartbreaking because it's Renoir begging Aline to leave, but she's telling him to let her go. The English translation is A Life of Loving You. It's Aline and Renoir singing about their love, and while Renoir sings about his love being forever, Aline sings about their love dying. He sings about continuing to love her, while she sings about continuing to paint. He says something like, "Even if our pulses play out of time sync, my love remains, waits." But Aline only tells Renoir to stop loving her. How tragic that must be to hear, to be told, to be felt. Renoir's love is undying and unbreaking. And while he declares his love and reminds his wife of his devotion, she is throwing it away. She is breaking his heart in this song. The lyrics are genuinely devastating. The way it's sung, so full of emotion, so desperate. Even if you don't understand the lyrics, you can feel the passion behind it, the way they are yelling at each other. They represent Aline and Renoir and their diverging paths. And while they are absolutely both hurting, Aline is twisting the knife, while Renoir fights to save her and their love and their family. I think this dynamic between them had already existed for a long time, but I also think the two were having problems long before Verso died. His death was really just the catalyst to more. When we speak with Clair, she says that neither of them are adult enough for the conversation they need to have, and she believes they're better apart right now than together, until they face their grief. She recognizes the flaws in their relationship, how Aline traps Renoir in her destruction, and how Renoir does absolutely anything to get her out of it. And she recognizes how this isn't the first time that this has happened. We also meet the fading man on Sirène's island, another piece of Renoir. And he tells us a very sad and revealing story about him and Aline. He questions knowing people, knowing ourselves. How did he miss things? He questions how he didn't see. He says, "Is it a blessing to understand your darkest nature, or a curse to which we turned a blind eye? We lie to ourselves about the things we'd rather not admit or confront, about ourselves, about each other." He wonders what he didn't see, what he missed, that might have changed things. And he finishes by saying, "When did she start pulling away?" This piece of Renoir regrets missing the signs of Aline pulling away from him. This is a man experiencing heartbreak and wondering when it started. If you choose Verso's ending, Renoir is absolutely desperate for Aline's comfort and love. His body language and his demeanor show someone who has yearned for the touch of the person they need the most. Renoir needs Aline, and she's been gone. Not only that, they've been fighting for 67 years. But fighting implies two parties at fault when it's really just Aline essentially committing suicide, and Renoir trying to save her life. She's fighting him, but he's fighting for her. She trapped him within the monolith, made him suffer for 67 years. He's been completely closed off, stuck in isolation. That is cruel and genuinely heartless. I'd say this is probably close to torture. We saw how Simon lost his mind to the abyss. And I think in a lot of ways it is very similar to how Renoir must have felt here. Renoir's drafts are full of the dead Axons that were never finished. It's full of other creatures he's created, but most of all, it's only him here. 67 years is a very long time to be alone. And by the way he speaks about it, he felt that time pass. I imagine this was extremely hard on him. How do you damn the person you love to a fate like that? For 67 years. And not only that, but Aline had planned to keep him there forever. She replaced him with painted Renoir. She created this whole other life and family. And she discarded her real husband, discarded their family and their life. Renoir stayed trapped under the monolith, while his wife spent her new painted life with replacements of the people Renoir loved the most, but most of all, a replacement of him. Did he have to watch as this idealized version of himself that Aline created hugged and touched and loved his wife, all the things that he couldn't do? Did he have to watch as they started this new family and he was forgotten? I can't imagine the pain that someone would feel watching that. Aline was ready to let go of him, and yet all this time he spent fighting for her, while also trying to save her from herself. He spent 67 years questioning everything, wondering about the what-ifs, and lingered in his regret. Here was a man who is completely dedicated to his family, and yet he has been isolated for 67 years without them. The entire time he spent thinking, creating portraits of his family to remember them by. He created his act of love, the gommage. He did everything that he could. Despite Aline treating him so poorly, he kept fighting for her, even while fighting against her. Even in the final fight, Aline stands against Renoir. When he says it's supposed to be you and me, not you fighting me, she tells him to go home, go and paint something else. And she's cold and heartless about it. This is one of the few times she speaks as Aline, and it's cold and callous. Painting used to be something they shared. The Fading Man speaks about it several times. Renoir speaks of how they made hundreds of canvas worlds together, how Aline taught him, how he doesn't know when they stop painting for the same reasons. This thing that they used to love has been tainted, evident by their arguing in the music. This is what their life's passion has been turned into. Cold, heartless Aline, telling him to go paint alone. Renoir is an emotional, devoted man, and I think he has been the opposite to Aline's harder self. We know from an interaction with Maëlle, when she's in the house, that Aline only let her hang up one single painting that she deemed worthy. Aline also painted Alicia with her scars. Aline seems cold and sometimes cruel, very similarly to Clair. And while we don't see those interactions with Aline, we see the remnants of her family experiencing them. We see how Clair seems so similar to how I imagine Aline would be, striving for perfection, expecting only the best, and living up to her own mother's expectations. We see how Renoir depicts himself and how he sees his dynamic with his wife, doing everything for her and enduring her cruelty. We see how Alicia knows the knife of her mother's expectations and knows that she didn't measure up. She sees her mother's blame and how her mother made painted Alicia suffer. She knows the coldness of her mother. Even painted Renoir has been manipulated in Aline's image. He fights to protect the canvas, going against what the real Renoir wanted. We see how the creation and existence of painted Verso has made him make horrible decisions and made him literally want to die. We see how Verso's purpose and existence has been twisted and manipulated by Aline to shape this world how she wants it. Aline hurts her family over and over again, but Renoir seems to be her punching bag. She hurts him and discards him over and over. I wonder, in if there's 67 years of fighting, if Aline tried manipulating Renoir to make him see the appeal of keeping the canvas and Verso's soul alive. I wonder if he ever almost gave in. He wants to give his wife everything, and I know he struggled not to. If anything, I bet it angered Aline to not be given something by her husband, since to me it seems like that's what Renoir knows how to do. I don't think Aline wants to hurt Renoir, but I also think that she knows that she can. He will never stop loving her, never stop fighting, and I also think He'll never stop enabling her. Enable is probably the wrong word, but I don't think there's any limit to what Renoir would let Aline do to him. And I think she knows this. I think when you treat someone in a specific way over and over again, it's because you know that they'll let you. I'm not excusing the behavior of abusers, but this is often how people get stuck in that cycle. Abusers will keep pushing their limits. This is how I see Aline. She continues to make Renoir suffer for these 67 years, suffer for his crime of wanting her to live. And for his crimes, he is trapped under the monolith. I think it's cruel. She both knows that Renoir will continue to do anything to save her. So trapping him is all she has to prevent him from erasing the canvas, but I also wonder if she ever thought about the after. If she truly was ready to sacrifice him by keeping him trapped there, eventually killing him just like she would have killed herself. Or did she ever ask herself, what will I do when I finally free him? I think the reality is that she knew that no matter how long he was trapped, no matter how much they fought, or the lengths that she went to, Renoir's love truly would not waver. He would be there afterwards no matter what. She takes his love for granted and pushes her abuse to new heights. I truly think what Aline does to Renoir is extremely cruel. This is not how you treat the people you love. The Tisseur family, all of them are fucked up. Each one of them is some form of broken. They're all living within their grief, but Aline's actions are the most destructive to her entire family. And they're also the most selfish. I understand Aline is lost in her grief, and she is really the portrait of how bad it can get. But the destruction she has left in her wake is really unforgivable to me. Renoir may forgive her and will. Maëlle may forgive her and Clair may not care about forgiving her, but I just can't imagine being Renoir and being the subject of her abuse. I genuinely do think it's a form of emotional abuse. To trap the person you love in isolation while you repaint them and create your idealized version of them, then create a whole fictional life while you discard your real one. We saw how Verso was fucked up from being his mother's creation and being manipulated by her. How is Renoir able to shoulder all of this? How, at the end of everything that has been done to him, is he able to just forgive her and embrace her like he does? He is desperate for her. Because that is Renoir. Loyal, dedicated, unwavering in his love. In Verso's ending, he has forgiven her, no questions asked. He leans into her, desperate for her touch, desperate to love her, because that is all he's wanted to begin with. He wants the love of his life back. So he forgives. Because for Aline, Renoir will truly do anything, endure anything, and go to any length. And maybe that is the real tragedy of Renoir and Aline, this destructive dynamic, and how their love for each other and for their son is also destroying them. There is so much tragedy in this family and so much pain. And even though they're all hurting each other, that hurt stems from love. They're able to inflict this much pain on each other because they all love each other so much. It's how love works. With love comes pain, sadness, hurt, and eventually loss and grief. We endure all of these emotions loving someone. And I think the story of the Tissandras and the people within the canvas really show this. How at the core of each and every story is really love and loss, and how it changes and guides us. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is really about being human. And even the axons and nevrons are part of that on a deeper level. Axons and nevrons might be in reference to axons and neurons. The neurons in your brains and the paths that they communicate along. Your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are made up of all the electrical impulses traveling across your neurons. In Clair Obscur, the nevrons and the axons are made to convey emotions and feelings and ideas. It's a small connection, but it's an interesting way to connect our brains to our creations through everything from their designs to their names. These are the things that love and art are about. Through art, we can express our deepest emotions and try to understand them, which is exactly what Renoir was doing with his creations of the Axons, trying to understand how his family got here and trying to understand what he missed. It's a sad story. And I know this turned out being more about Renoir in some ways than Aline, but the Axons are Renoir's perspective. We really only know Aline through her family's eyes. Most of all, her devoted husband who refuses to leave her side. These are also just my interpretations of the symbolism and connections with Sirène and the story. Some of these could be intentional or merely coincidence. And the devs are pretty keen on keeping everything up for interpretation by the fans, which I like. But let me know what you think. Do you have different interpretations? Did my own make you think differently? Let me know in the comments, and thank you so much for watching. Making these analysis videos about Clair Obscur Expedition 33 has been the most fun I've ever had making content, and I'm very thankful to everyone who has watched. I promise I read all the comments, I just haven't responded yet, but thank you so much. Thank you to my channel members, thank you to my Patreon members. Thank you all so much for your support. I'll see you next time.